Eugene, welcome home.
Christiaan.
I said to you a couple of days ago when you arrived here to campus.
Yes.
Very happy to see you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back at my alma mater.
Exactly. And so the first question, of course, that is interesting to ask. When you came many years ago, what year was that?
1996.
1996, so that's really in the founding
First
year.
Yeah.
The first year. Although it started in 1995, but it was really founded in 1996,
Right.
the ITI. And you were not a typical theology student. What brought you to the ITI?
So I worked in Catholic higher education for many years, and my role with the Catholic institution at that time put me in a position to interview for the president, to interview candidates for the president of the ITI. And we interviewed Michael Waldstein, and I thought, wow.
So you were working for Franciscan at that
Franciscan University as the Dean of Students in the Gaming campus.
Okay.
And I worked with Franciscan for 7.5 years. I had worked with Wheeling Jesuit University prior to that, and I had been in higher education for a number of years. But after interviewing, I just thought, wow, phenomenal person, well-formed, and I thought, if he's the president of the ITI, this is something to seriously consider pursuing.
Right. And then you decided to apply.
To jump in.
Wow.
I had been praying for wisdom for decades, probably because I needed it more than most people. But I pray Solomon's Prayer for wisdom every night.
I needed more, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So, and what I found in the ITI core curriculum that was brought into place and that came into being was a practical, speculative and practical means of pursuing wisdom. And wisdom being the articulation to know how things come apart into their appropriate parts and how they're put together. And so I'd been yearning for that, seeking that for years, and I was thirsty. In fact, I was beyond thirsty for that wisdom. So to be able to engage in an explication of the text, a close reading of the text with other students from Latvia, Estonia, Bulgaria, Ukraine, United States, Europe, in this cultural both lungs of the church, and to engage in these robust dialogues, understanding the text. I would go in thinking I understood what I had read, and I'd come out thinking, wow, I had no clue what that really meant. And so to be able to pull apart the text, to go deeper in the original sources, was phenomenal. It truly was a blessing and an answer to my prayer for wisdom.
Now that's 23 years ago.
23 years ago.
You are now a member of the Board of Trustees of the
Yes.
ITI. That's why you're here these days for our annual board meeting. 23 years ago, we're now at a different location here in Trumau, where we've been for the past 10 years. I'm in the meantime the third president of the ITI. How is it for you to be back here today, and how was it then?
Yeah, so it's great to be back. I mean, your greeting to me, welcome home. Truly, this is a home because in many ways, the ITI brought me to a new life. And so it was a place where I was born again in a very real way, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. And so it's wonderful to come back, to be home, to be able to serve, to give back to the ITI by being on the board. And then to be a fledgling student trying to figure it out, an older student with children, but trying to figure out what the text really meant and how do I then apply them. And so I apply them in everyday life. As a businessman, I use what I learned at the ITI. So it was Sicut Cervis et Fontes. It truly satisfied a deep thirst. And so having drunk deeply and then coming back now, and to see the power of what the ITI has done to quench and sometimes provoke the thirst in people. To go to with the play Oliver Twist the other night was so humbling to see the children of the people with whom I studied in the ITI presenting Oliver Twist, and to be engaged in this dialogue and the passion that they put into it, and the intellectual pursuits that they had here. It was very humbling to see that and know that, oh, you're the son
Right.
of, you're the
You're
daughter
just a
of,
brother of.
you're the, oh my
I
gosh.
studied with.
I
yeah.
studied with,
Yeah.
with your father, with your mother. I worked with your father, your mother. And so to see in 23 years the impact that the ITI has had. So flying over here, I sat next to a young man on the airplane who works out of Washington, D.C. He was flying over to go to Bratislava. And so we talked about Bratislava, and I talked about the Slovakian students with whom I had studied and worked. And we got to talking about what he's doing, and he's working with Miriam Lexman, who's a Catholic legislator, Catholic politician in Bratislava. And then I found out that Miriam Kosarova, I think it's the way it's pronounced, is a graduate. She also is a politician in Bratislava. So to experience, happenstance, to be 1 degree away from a graduate of the ITI who's impacting Slovakia, to have our own Gudrun Lang, with whom I studied,
She's
to be
now called Gudrun Kugler.
Kugler.
She's married.
Yeah, sir.
And she's
Sorry.
in the federal parliament
That's
of
right,
Austria.
federal parliament of Austria.
Right.
The impact that she's having, and the catechetical programs that Father Yuri brought to the Ukraine, and just the editor of the Magnificat, right?
Is
a graduate of the ITI.
Yeah.
So looking at the impact of what the ITI has done globally, this small little institute, through which a spring bubbled up, sicut cervus et fontes, bubbled up to quench the thirst of so many people who are yearning for wisdom.
You were just saying that you're in business, you're a businessman.
I'm
you
a business owner.
Founded 2 successful businesses.
Yes.
And you have been building those up for many years now. I've been able to follow that with great interest. And if you look at your current career as a businessman, leading a company, what would you say is the most important lesson you took away from the ITI that you're applying today in your business?
Yeah, I think it's to know a thing to its sources, to look for root cause, to understand how to take things apart, how to take a problem apart, an opportunity apart. And so as I work with business owners who are my clients, I help them to think strategically, to think through the situations, the opportunities and challenges with which they're faced every day. And so I use what I learned at the ITI every single day in business, in helping business owners pursue wisdom in and through their business, with business as a means to an end, not the end itself. I think there are very few better ways, if I'm biased, to grow in character and virtue and holiness. Of course, their counterparts, vice, right, and unholiness, and a lack of character as well, I suppose, but very few better ways than to be a business owner, to grow in character, virtue, holiness. And so it really is a vocation to help business owners see business as a means to an end versus the end itself. And so walking them through causality and, helping them to take their business apart and put it together in a way that they want. I help people business owners discover what they really want,
what their vocation is,
what their calling is, what their desire, that for the sake of which they're created, and then help them to determine with candid, brutally kind honesty where they actually really are. And then we work together to develop a plan, and then I encourage and assist them as they do the work.
So you're really a mentor, a coach for business leaders.
So a trusted advisor, and along the way I've advised business owners in the merger and acquisition of other companies and then sale of their companies. And so I've developed over the years as a trusted advisor to business owners whatever I needed to do to help them to have success and succession in and through their business is what I've been able to do. And again, all of that is founded upon what I learned at the ITI.
Is it fair to say that if I would summarize it, 2 of the most important things you learned at the ITI is to learn how to think and to learn or be helped in learning to live the virtuous life?
Sure, yes. So faith and reason, right?
Faith and reason.
And to put it into practice, to have theory move into practice, right? To have the speculative move into the practical, because you need both of those. And to be able to think and reason and to encounter the other so that I can have an I-thou relationship with the business owners with whom I'm blessed to work.
Right. If you would be sitting in front of a group of young Catholics, potential students who are discerning where they would go to study or what they are going to do with their lives in general, what would you advise a young Catholic or a young Christian adult in today's world, how they can make a difference as a Christian in this world? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, and
apart from studying at the ITI, we will understand that.
Study at the ITI.
Right, exactly. But apart from that, what would be your advice?
So, and yes, I would add to that, a seeker of truth, right? So there are people who along the way they're seeking the truth, and where would they go to find it? And so I would say, come to the ITI. So I would encourage any young person to take the time, invest the time to discover what they really want. And that doesn't always come, you don't go to the corner store to discover what you really want, but you find experiences, the Phoenix Institute is experience, you find experiences, opportunities to engage in service, and you seek to really dig down into what the human person is comprised, and to know how to think and to reason, and so to know what you think and to know how to think. And if you don't have that, how do you really discover what you want and why? It's the difference between drifting through life and allowing life to sort of blow you wherever you want, or to discover that towards which you're drawn.
Take ownership of your life.
That's right, to be responsible. That towards which you're drawn, that for the sake of which you're created. Now that's easier said than done, but it comes about as a winnowing process of pursuing and trying to discover purpose and meaning, and to do that at the ITI, really what it does is it condenses that journey, not only condenses it and concentrates it, which is a good way to think of it. It enables you to then come out of this formative time to have a greater impact more quickly on the world.
I was never myself a student at the ITI. Obviously, I came here 15 years ago.
There's always hope. You
exactly,
can still do
in my
it.
professional career, but it has shaped me enormously. And I completely underwrite what you say. It's so important that young people take the time to find their true vocation in life, because your vocation is the place where your God-given talents
manifest themselves,
and where you are able to contribute to this world as you are meant to be, every one of them, to contribute to this world.
Absolutely.
And I think your testimony is a good example of that. It's a good example that you went in search of your vocation.
And it found me.
And it found you. Well, that's
because I pleaded for it. I begged for it. And to do it in the community with Eastern Europeans and Western Europeans and Asians, and to be able to be in a community, a faith community that's committed to Christ, that's pursuing the truth. It's a safe environment. It's a challenging environment. It's a rich and broad and deep environment, both lungs of the church, East and West. The mind of the church in the heart of Europe, it doesn't get much better. I mean, the move to Trumau, as challenging as it was, truly was a blessing for the ITI.
Great blessing. Yeah. So, in concluding, looking back 23 years, when you were one of the first students, in fact, ever of the ITI, you must have still been there during the time that Bill Clark, who unfortunately died a couple of years ago, and who was a member of our board, a predecessor of you in the board, and who did a lot for the ITI at that time. You might have still seen him, but if you look back those 23 years, are you happy to see how the ITI has developed?
It's a blessing, truly. When I was at the play, to see the fruit of so many years of intentional, purposeful labor of the ITI, and to see the children that were born of that labor and the children of the children born of that labor, it's deeply satisfying, deeply humbling, deeply honoring to see the power with which the ITI has impacted the world.
The world, exactly, because you're an example of an alumni of the ITI who went back to his country, which is where we're there for. The ITI is we form the people here and then send them back to their countries to change.
To go out and subdue the land, to be fruitful and to multiply.
Exactly,
right?
and to do good works in their countries. And we have politicians and businessmen and theologians and priests and people in religious orders and many people in education.
In politics and economics.
Exactly. And it's great to see you here today.
Thank you very much.
As a successful businessman, and of course a great honor for us as an ITI to hear that you at least partly attribute that to your time at the ITI and your formation of the ITI.
Yeah, significantly so. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for your time, and God bless you on your further work as a businessman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.